Good afternoon. It is 2 o'clock, and I'd like to call to order the September 27th meeting of the Oklahoma City Water Utilities Trust. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. The minutes are in your packet. Are there any questions or comments on the minutes? If not, is there a motion for approval? All right. And it passes unanimously. Next up is the consent docket, a large consent docket today, a number of items on there. Are there any questions or are there any items that the trustees would like to pull for individual consideration? Mr. General Manager, there's a contract on there with Crossland Heavy Contractors to add some surge protection for the Hefner plant. Can you specifically go into that a little bit and talk to us about what type of surge protection?
Yes, sir, I will. Over the years, the plant has grown. In addition, most of the mechanical surge protection devices have aged beyond their useful life, so we are replacing the mechanical components. As you know, there's a large tower there that's part of that system that is not needing additional repair. These are just the mechanical components of the surge system at the facility.
Okay. All right. Are there any other questions regarding the consent docket? Seeing none, is there a motion for approval? We have a motion and a second. Please vote. And it passes unanimously. Next up is the concurrence docket. The concurrence docket has 7 items from the McGee Creek Authority meeting that was held 2 weeks ago down in Atoka. Mr. Stonecipher and I attended down in Atoka with some staff members, and those items were all approved at that McGee Creek meeting. Are there any items on the concurrence docket that the trustees would like to see for individual consideration? Any questions? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the concurrence docket? We have a motion and a second. Please vote. And
Trustee Stonecipher.
Mark? And it's approved unanimously. There are no emergency construction contracts today on items for individual consideration. We have a preliminary report to be presented on the Overholser Dam Structural Stability Improvement Project. And I believe we have some representatives here today from Freese & Nichols.
Members, Director Browning. My name is Colin Young. I'm the project manager for Freese & Nichols Engineering Company. I have with me here today some of my colleagues, Jennifer Wassinger and John Rutledge. Some of you may recognize John Rutledge from the Atoka Dam project. What I'm going to speak on today is the project that we undertook over the past year, starting in 2021, for the structural stability improvements to Overholser Dam. A little bit of quick history on the dam, because it is a registered historic site. Both the gatehouse structure itself and the concrete dam are both registered historic sites, facilities with SHPO. If you look to your right, the gatehouse structure, that houses 4 gates that maintain water levels on the North Canadian River, and that river flows pass through there. The rest of the gates are for flood control. The dam was built in 1919, and it ended, the dam used to end right here. And from here over was earth. And originally, these gates that you see here, these are gates, we numbered them 10 through 24. They're numbered 10 through 24. Did not exist in the original construction. So the only spillway that existed in the original construction was this overflow spillway here in the center. And the dam ended right here in 1919. In 1923, the flood of record on the North Canadian River took place and breached around the right side of the dam through this earth fill and natural soils. In 1923, they came in and rebuilt this new, what we call the new part of the dam. 1924 was when it was completed, and during that same process, they realized that it was seriously undersized spillway to pass the design flows, So they retrofitted this older part of the dam and retrofitted them with floodgates, and then added floodgates obviously in the new section. So there were a total then at one point of 24 floodgates. One has since been decommissioned on the very far right side due to some scour issues. So there are 23 floodgates. Okay, so what did we know going into this project? And our knowledge base was based on our previous annual dam inspections. We have the current 5-year contract for annual dam inspections, and going through the city's files, we knew that the dam didn't meet current state hydraulic criteria, and what that means is it's not capable of passing the design flow that's required by state statutes. The gates exist, there are a number of gates exist to be able to do it, but there's no way to operably open those all at the same time in a timely enough fashion to deal with the flood flows. Several gates are inoperable or have not been operated in decades. Several of the gates have extensive coating loss, corrosion, and metal loss. There's concrete cracking, deterioration, spalling, and some missing supports, typical for a dam of this age. And then there were some previous stability issues of the concrete structure based on the 2004 project in this central spillway section. They added some concrete infilling inside. That portion of the dam is hollow, and they added concrete infill to add weight to it to stabilize that part of the structure in 2004. So we knew it had stability issues, at least in part of the dam going in. So here's what we didn't know going in. We didn't know whether it met the current state and federal stability criteria for concrete dams. We didn't know whether the dam met current structural codes or guidelines for the concrete elements themselves, how many gates were operable, current condition of the concrete and steel components, and really what the current design flood was. The last flood study was done in 1978 using antiquated modeling techniques. We didn't have the modern computer models that we have now. Precipitation models for the local area and drainage area leading into Overholtz have been updated since then. So we needed a good handle on the current design flood to know actually how much water Overholtz needs to safely pass. And as I mentioned, the 1978, that was a comprehensive study done by the Corps of Engineers. It was their phase 1 program all around the country, and that was really the last kind of comprehensive assessment of Overholtz that had been done. So we developed a scope and a fee in this contract that we're here to present the report on today, and it consisted of these major components. We wanted to do a good visual evaluation of the physical conditions through a climbing inspection. We actually had climbers on ropes, going down and scaling the concrete and the gates and all that stuff. Precision survey, real detailed survey, so we can actually see micro movements to see if the structure is actually moving. Helps us determine if there's current stability issues ongoing. Do a stability assessment of all the different sections of the concrete dam. Again, address that hydraulic adequacy. What is the design flood that needs to pass, and how many gates do we need to pass that flood? And then look at alternatives to meet those, to mitigate the concerns or the deficiencies that we find in the preceding tasks.
Quick question.
Yes, sir.
On the volume of flow that needs to pass through that, I would guess that's probably a similar number to the number that passes over either the Meridian, the western, or the eastern dam on the Oklahoma River further on down.
No, completely different watersheds. So we're with Overholtzer, we're dealing with the water that comes between Canton and Overholtzer,
Right.
and then also the releases from Canton Dam at that point. The western and eastern have different watersheds along that corridor, plus whatever comes out of Overholtzer. So different flows.
So they have larger numbers?
I couldn't say. I don't know. The numbers we're looking at, since you asked that question, the regulatory inflow that we need to pass to meet state guidelines is 185,000 CFS. But that's down from what was in the original 1978 assessment. So it was beneficial to do the modern study. We dropped that number significantly. Okay. So the assessment results. The floodgates need to be replaced. They're well beyond their repairable condition. Modern electric hoist systems are needed so that you can operate multiple gates at the same time to get those gates open to pass that flood. Because right now there's one mobile motor. It can only open one gate at a time. It takes 24 hours to open and 24 hours to close. It's simply not quick enough. We did determine that only 7 gates are needed, and there's 23 there total. So there's an opportunity to permanently disengage or take out a number of those gates that aren't needed, which helps in long-term O&M costs to only have 7 gates that need to be operated. And the stability does not meet current federal and state criteria. These are just some sample photos of the conditions of the dam that we found during our climbing inspection. You see some spalled concrete on the left and right, corrosion of gate members, more corrosion on the steel floodgates, some concrete cracking and spalling, exposed rebar there on the right side. So given the results of our analysis on stability and the physical conditions and the hydraulic studies, we look at 3 alternatives, and this is pretty common. These major alternative groupings are pretty common for old dams. What we do in the dam industry is we want to look at a rehabilitation alternative, keep the structure basically looking as is and rehabilitate it to meet current standards. It's commonplace to then consider a dam replacement as an alternative to that when you're getting up into these kind of dollars. Sometimes the dam replacement can be cost effective, and there may be other compelling reasons to consider that seriously. So we looked at a dam replacement, placing a dam just downstream of Overholzer, and then a dam decommissioning and draining the lake, keeping the structure there but taking its ability away to impound water. And those are kind of the rough cost estimates for construction that we came up with at the preliminary phase. About $48 million, around that number for a rehabilitation or modernization, mid-50s for a dam replacement, and about $50 million for a decommissioning. So to kind of carry forward more on a detailed level was the rehabilitation alternative, and to break down that cost, because that's a big bite to chew at once at $48 to $50 million range. So we got together with Director Browning and the engineering staff and said, hey, is there any way we can phase this thing to break it up into pieces? And we said, sure we can look at that. So what we came up with was basically a 3-phase approach. The first phase of the rehabilitation would meet and satisfy all the hydraulic requirements in phase number 1. That'd be the first project out of the gate, no pun intended. And then we'd also meet the stability criteria in that same section. I'll point to a figure here in a subsequent slide to show you those different areas we're talking about on the structure itself. But we'd meet stability criteria in about a third of the dam in that first phase. And then in phases 2 and 3, we would then finish meeting the stability criteria in those other sections of the structure. So at this point, well, let me skip this real quick and go to that picture while we're talking about phasing. So the phase 1 project would consist of new gates and hoists in the new part of the dam here, and then meeting stability criteria in this section as well by doing the same technique they did in the overflow spillway, filling the inside, that's a hollow section there too, filling that with mass concrete, spreading that load out, making that section more stable. And then we'd leave a cofferdam in place across the rest of the structure and dewater it until this phase of the project can be completed. And that dewatering process, taking that water load off the structure, improves stability. Doesn't get us to where we need to be, but it definitely improves it significantly while this project is while funds are being acquired and it's being designed to do phase 2. And then phase 3 is just doing the same thing over here in the gatehouse that we're doing on the right side, filling it with mass concrete to make it more stable. Okay, let me go back to Jennifer's slide. Nope. Can you reload that for me? I think I exited out by mistake. 13. So Jennifer's going to talk about the funding opportunities for construction.
Okay, well, as we looked at those dollars, there's a large dollar amount that comes into this project. But if you were going to have a project like this, now is the time to look for some of these alternative funding sources. Your staff is phenomenal at looking at some alternative funding, things that you're not used to every day. And these are some new ones that are out there. There's over $1.5 billion that is setting aside right now specifically for dam rehabilitation reconstruction. And it's over a 5-year period, but at this point is time, as they're doing the design, looking at it, figuring out what is the best option, what's going to have the least amount of federal strings. Now is the time to look at it and consider it for when they are finished with the engineering design. So high hazard, these three programs are ones that you might not normally think of: the high hazard potential dam program, the BRIC, the building resilient infrastructure. These are, and the hazard mitigation, these are all programs that really look at your structure to minimize that risk. So I think this project is an ideal project to consider, either going after these funds or some layering with some other funding sources that are out there.
Any questions we can answer for you?
No, I think that's good.
Good.
Mr. Browning, are you planning on putting together an event to commemorate the 100-year anniversary of the breach of the Overholser Dam?
No, sir, I was not.
Okay, that's probably a good idea.
We did celebrate the 100-year anniversary of the construction of the dam, but I think
remember.
we'll leave the breach part alone.
Okay. So I guess we need to approve item A3, which is the resolution ratifying the actions of the general manager.
Receive that.
Oh, okay, and we need to, so first of all, we need a motion to receive item A1, is to receive the preliminary report. Is there a motion to do so? We have a motion and a second. Please vote. And it's approved unanimously. Now we need to adopt a resolution ratifying the actions of the general manager in submitting a sub-applicant grant agreement between the City of Oklahoma City Water Utilities Trust and the Oklahoma City Water Resources Board. Is there a motion for that item? We have a motion and a second. Please vote. And it passes unanimously.
Mr. Chairman, I'll need you to consider item A2 as well, to authorize me to negotiate the design
Okay,
contract
Very
on the
good.
recommendations.
very good. So is there a motion for item A2? All right, we have a motion and a second. Please record your vote. And it passes. Thank you. Items from trustees. Anything this afternoon?
A couple of things. Number one, is my mic on? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. There we go. Like you said, I got to go down to Atoka County with you and with Brett. Got a tour of the what some call Atoka Lake or Lake Atoka Reservoir and McGee Creek Reservoir. And we met with the McGee Creek Authority, and I wanted to be sure and thank Mayor Brian Cathy for his hospitality, and it was a great meeting, and staff did a great job, and they were well prepared. Secondly, last week I got to appear in front of the Oklahoma Water Resources Board, and just so happened that our director, Mr. Browning, was also there making a presentation, and we were well represented. He did an excellent job and was able to prevail upon the Oklahoma Water Resources Board to do some things that we needed. So it was good to see him in action. Thank you.
And did you prevail?
I did.
Okay, very good. Very good. All right, other items from trustees? General manager's report. Mr. Browning?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to say one more thing about the Overholser project. In that negotiation for the design, we also intend to ask Friesen Nichols to help us with the potential grant opportunities. They do have expertise in that regard, so we'll be engaging them to help us with that as well. I have a couple of things. First of all, I'll give you the lake report. No surprise, but no rain. The lakes are continuing to drop. Hefner is about 5 1/4 feet below full pool. Draper is approaching 10. The southeast Oklahoma lakes are about 4 1/2 feet. Canton is approaching 3 feet below full pool. I don't see any measurable rain in the forecast, according to our daily forecasts from the various news agencies. They are predicting a warmer and drier winter than normal. we will continue to monitor. We are sending a letter out to the folks who rent the wet stalls from us, advising them that they need to be paying attention to the lake levels and might want to consider removing their boats sometime in the future if we don't get some more water in the lakes. Secondly, I would like to give you some more detailed information on the pro forma. We have, good news is we've pumped more water this summer, sold more water this summer, so we have more revenues. Bad news is the cost to produce that water is much higher than anticipated for two reasons. First of all, chemicals have gone up quite a bit. For instance, chlorine has gone up 300%. So in January, we were paying about $600 a ton, and today we're paying about $1,800 a ton. And other chemicals have gone up as well, not quite that much. Secondly, energy has gone up significantly. We were presented an estimate from OG&E on the fuel adjustment for our operations for the year in the neighborhood of about $2 million increase. Turns out it's about an $8.5 million increase. So with that and the chemical increase, we have about a $10 million shortfall in our water quality division, and we'll be requesting a budget amendment accordingly. The other divisions are doing just fine. The expenses and revenues are on track for the year. I just wanted to let you know what was going on there. Last, good news. In front of you, there's first time during my tenure is the annual report. Staff did an outstanding job putting this report together, and I think you'll find a lot of good information in there. And as I said, this is an annual report, so you'll be seeing it every year around the 1st of September. Remember, we close out the end of June. It takes a couple months to close the books out, to get the financials ready and get all the other data ready, so you'll be seeing it about the 1st of every September. With that, I would be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions for Mr. Browning? Okay, I'm not aware of any citizens that have signed up to be heard. Therefore, we are adjourned.